Giants are some of the most prevalent figures in fantasy literature, and have appeared in the ancient writings of the Greeks, Celts, Indians, and Norse, just to name a few. While their moral tendencies seem to shift between evil and benevolent, their physical characteristics mostly stay the same. They are large in stature, extremely strong, and more often than not, weak of mind. In Dark Souls 1 and 3, we experience the entire spectrum of giant behaviour, from the silent, tortured giant slaves we find in the Cathedral of the Deep, to the wise dragon slayer Hawkeye Goff and the trusty Giant Blacksmith. This video will be, I believe, the first video ever made to focus exclusively on the nature of giants in Dark Souls 1 and 3. I will not be discussing giants from Dark Souls too much, as I believe that is a concept that has been studied and documented extensively already by other YouTubers. So where did the giants come from? To discover this, we need to look at the recipients of the Lord Souls. The deities Gwyn, Nito, and the Witch of Izalith were worthy of the souls they found, unafraid to harness the power they inherited from the First Flame. The furtive pygmy, on the other hand, was not worthy. He had no proud title or ability, evidenced by the words, "so easily forgotten." There are a few things that we can learn from the name alone. Furtive means attempting to avoid notice or attention, typically because of guilt or a belief that discovery would lead to trouble. Secretive. This shows us that this being was attempting to hide the fact that it had discovered the Lord Soul, and that the pygmy knew that it should not have fallen into his hands. Considering what Lord Souls are capable of fueling, whether it is the First Flame, an army of dead, or an entire race of demons, imagine the consequences of such a force falling into the hands of a simple man, perhaps the first man, or primeval man, as he is sometimes referred. Let's look at the definition of pygmy. A pygmy is a member of an ethnic group whose average height is unusually short. This would make a case that Manus, the primeval man, is actually part of the same race as giants, if Manus is the furtive pygmy, as some have suggested. As evidenced by his grave, Manus was once unusually small for a giant, like a literal pygmy. The ages and giants in Dark Souls relate closely to elements of Jainism. In Jainism, the ancient Indian religion, there are 6 aras, which is a worldly cycle of time. With each passing ara, the average height, lifespan, and level of happiness decreases until a new cycle begins. As evidenced in Dark Souls, giants can live an extraordinarily long life, and even longer once they begin to transform into trees. The eras in which beings live the longest and are happiest and tallest are the early eras. Since giants were probably among the first humanoids to live, FromSoft might have been working with this parallel in mind. This is by no means a concrete theory, but interesting nonetheless, as we do know that FromSoft enjoys taking inspiration from many different cultures and faiths. In the time of Dark Souls 1, giants seem to be viewed in several different ways. The first and perhaps most influential giant to be noticed by the Lordran population was Hawkeye Goff. The leader of Gwyn's legendary dragon slayers, Goff has a Yoda-like presence to him, speaking slowly with a wide vocabulary. If we look at Goff's armor set, there is evidence that parts of it were only given to him after his service in battle. His chest piece has a description that reads, "Armor donned by Goff since his days as a dragon slayer. The medallion bequeathed by the Lord himself, and the dragonbone pauldrons are symbols of his highest honours." The wording "since his days as a dragon slayer" implies that he had the armour itself for a time during his service, and the part about the medallion may mean that the Lord, presumably Gwyn, gave it to him as a medal of some sort, along with the pauldrons, which are considered the highest honour. Whether it was given as a reward for his service, or as a symbol of status since he was leader of the Dragon Slayers, is unknown. What is known, however, is that Gwyn obviously valued him as a soldier, perhaps higher even than Artorias or Ornstein. If we have a look at his gauntlets, the description reads, "Received as a decoration of honour, crafted of similar material to the gauntlets worn by the Silver Knights." Consider the thought process of a Silver Knight for a moment. The knights, who have earned their position by proving themselves in battle and at Sen's fortress, watch as this giant, this behemoth, have honours bestowed upon him that they could only dream of. This archer who stands far back from the front lines, bringing down dragons with unmatched skill. Add on to this fact that the Golden Sentinels, giants in beautifully crafted armour, now watch over some of the most sacred areas of Anor Londo, even outside Guinevere's chamber. Even their own lord's weapons are now crafted by the Giant Blacksmith, as evidenced by the giant's coal. I imagine that this must have made some of the knights angry, watching their lord begin to side with grotesque monsters rather than his own kin. Goff's helmet, presumably crafted by his friend the Giant Blacksmith, might have become the butt of a joke when Goff was presented with it. The item description reads, "A helm crafted especially for the Honourable Hawkeye Goff." Only the eye holes were packed in with tree resin by those who dismissed Goff as a brutish giant. Whether it was the Silver Knights or not who'd packed the eye holes with tree resin, Goff seemed not to mind, and wore the helmet regardless, even being able to shoot down enemies from afar without sight. What the description tells us for sure, however, is that Goff was not seen as honourable by all, but rather brutish. Perhaps because of this, Goff does not have the most positive outlook on humans. If you choose to attack him, he says, "Ah, so this is true human nature. Artorias is in your debt, but thou leavest me little choice. May you perish for the good of all." This would imply that Goff had suspicions of what human nature was like, as a malevolent and violent force attacking the peaceful for no reason. When he states the good of all, he believes he is doing everyone else a favour by getting rid of you. When we meet Goff in Ulasil, it is hard to say whether he is a prisoner of the townfolk or not. The door that leads to his tower is locked, yes, but it's not like Goff couldn't break through it if he wanted to. Furthermore, he has his greatbow by his side, and usually prisoners are not allowed to keep their weapons. I believe that Goff is just retired, wishing to stay away from the bloodshed and enjoy his wood carving, a non-violent pursuit that he can set his mind on. The Giant Blacksmith in Dark Souls 1 was, like Goff, highly trusted and respected by Gwyn for his services. He works in the Anor Londo Cathedral and derives happiness from crafting armor and weapons. Goff's ring is in the chest behind him, implying that they at least knew each other. Goff says, "Wood carving is a nuanced art. I would have much to talk about with the blacksmith. In truth, how is the old chap, I wonder? Still hammering away, I should hope." This not only shows that Goff has an amicable outlook on the smith, but the giants are more than capable of being craftsmen of all types, and are even open to sharing their knowledge with each other. This gives much more depth to giants than originally thought, and establishes them closer to humans than one would expect. In cut content, the blacksmith has a human-like face. It doesn't appear to be a simple placeholder, but an actual design. The giants in Dark Souls 2 appear to just have holes as faces, which may imply that the smith, at the very least, was an earlier iteration of the giant race. It is interesting to note that the giants that had the closest proximity to the Anor Londo Cathedral are the most literate and educated, it seems, with Goff being even more eloquent than most humans. There is also a link between Seath and the blacksmith implied through his dialogue. The Giant Blacksmith says, "You come, I forge, shiny shiny. Get shiny from Duke. Forge weapons, make shiny, more happy." The title of Duke was bestowed unto Seath when the archives were discovered, who was experimenting on crystal weapons at the time. This could be what the giant refers to as shiny shiny. This is backed up by the fact that he refers to the crystal ember as shiny shiny when you offer it to him. The Giant Blacksmith is spoken about quite highly by Andre in Dark Souls 3 when you present the giant's coal to him. Andre says,
My, the coal of that peaceable giant. Seems like ages passed. I imagine his passing was long ago. I miss the old bugger, I do. My thanks. I'll be sure this coal is put to good use. I'll be smithing weapons never afore seen by the likes of ye. It's but a small service to pay my humble respects.
It's quite refreshing and nice to see this adoration of a giant from a human, and respect of the giant's skills. However, it is unfortunate that the giants have been treated the way that they have in the third game. The giants we see in Dark Souls 3 is a far cry from the peaceful and content ones that we meet in the first game. For the most part, they are either enslaved or dead. Their skin is dirty and cracked, and they are bound in shackles and have nails that have been rammed through their legs to keep them from escaping. The Giant Blacksmith is found dead in Anor Londo, in the same place we left him in Dark Souls 1. It is hard to imagine someone killing the cooperative, happy blacksmith, but terrible cruelty finds its way into Dark Souls 3 through the Church of Aldrich. It is hard to tell exactly who decided to enslave the giants, but my bet is that Pontiff Sulyvahn or Aldrich might have requested it. The Pontiff would have seen them to be useful as guards and or labourers for the Cathedral of the Deep, where they are found, most likely in terrible pain. They appear to be blinded as well, or at least have had their vision impaired by the caged-looking mask on their face. We also find quite a few dead giants in the Anor Londo courtyard, with some living ones kept under watch by many deacons armed with pyromancies. I believe these are backup giants, in case the ones in the cathedral die and need to be replaced. There are also dead giants in Smouldering Lake, next to an enormous baluster or avalon. It appears that they may have been used as beasts of burden, and after their job was complete, they were killed by Carthus warriors. Then we have the giant of the Undead Settlement, positioned high up in a tower and armed with the same great bow that Goff uses. It is easy to jump to the conclusion that the giant is Goff. While it certainly could be the old dragon slayer, he does not speak as much and nowhere near as eloquently as Goff, traits that he was infamous for. His character model is identical to those found in the cathedral, albeit a little smaller. If it is Goff, it could imply that he has undergone some kind of treatment to make him unable to speak properly. This is, of course, completely unsubstantiated, and I have no way of proving it. One point that I do find quite fascinating, and that I think would be interested in hearing what you have to think about it, is that the giant of the Undead Settlement says, "I help anytime." The Giant Blacksmith has the exact same line of dialogue, who prefaces this by essentially saying, "I can't talk very well, but my smithing skills are excellent." There is one more connection of note in giant culture, and that is their connection to the white birch tree. Several of these distinct trees exist in the game, with the giant guarding two of them, one in the Undead Settlement in a graveyard, and the other out the front of the Cathedral of the Deep, coincidentally also in a graveyard. Birch trees actually have quite an extensive culture throughout history, but particularly in Celtic and Gaelic history, in which birch trees are seen to symbolize growth, renewal, stability, initiation, and adaptability, because it is a highly adaptive and able to sustain harsh conditions with casual indifference. In a strikingly dramatic account that comes from the Swedish town of Umeå, on the 25th of June 1888, a fire devastated the eastern parts of Umeå, and at least 2,300 of the 3,000 inhabitants became homeless. The fire was supposedly stopped by a line of birch trees that created a fire break of some sort. In the restoration following the fire, silver birch trees were planted along wide avenues to prevent future fires from spreading. For this reason, Umeå is sometimes known as Björkarnas the city of birches, and the name of Umeå's hockey team, Björklöven, means birch trees. If there are any Swedes out there that would like to correct me on this, please let me know. The white birch tree in Dark Souls has magical power, and its branches have the ability both to offer peace to the giant of the Undead Settlement and transform the user into a contextual object to hide from sight. The fact that the giants protect these trees obviously hints at some closeness that they have to them. White birch also has a presence in Ulasil, as catalysts and sorcerers' weapons are made from branches of the tree, but I could talk for hours about Ulasil, so we won't get into that. All in all, the giants seem to have been very badly treated after Dark Souls 1. Humankind has unfortunately taken advantage of their docile nature and used it as a weapon against them, subjugating them to torture and mindless servitude, even after earning the reverence of Gwyn so long ago. One can only hope that they find their rest, somehow, in the future. Thank you all again for sitting through another one of my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. I just thought the giants would be an interesting topic to cover, as I don't see them covered very often apart from in Dark Souls 2. I'm going to be away this weekend, so I wanted to get something out before I went away, and the next video that'll be coming up is probably going to be on the Demon Ruins, the continuation of the second Karthus video, and then after that I was thinking about doing something on the Cathedral of the Deep, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments if you want to see anything in particular, and hope to see you again soon.